Hey guys, well, this is part 2 of the battery upgrade. I was hoping I could make a video out of this, but you really didn't miss much. It was kind of boring actually. Just basically dropped the box out. Took out the lead acid, which are right here. 48 volts there, and I left 2 of them in the box. I originally wanted to do 36 volts and use one as the booster pack, but I found the way the bike is wired, it can't be done. The booster pack has to be separate from the rest of the bike and tied to the controller. So the only thing that sees the extra voltage is the controller. The rest of the bike can't see it. So anyway, just addressing some of the issues with the design of the bike. One is the batteries weren't strapped in. So every time you hit a bump, they literally would jump up and down, which obviously it wasn't designed for Ontario roads. So what I did is I put 2 straps on the bottom there. As you can see, they lock up. You can tighten them up once in a while. It not only keeps the batteries down and secured, it keeps them from squeezes the box too. So there's basically no play whatsoever, which I don't want, is because you get to really fine balance leads on the LiPo 4, and they're not going to take much before they break. I also addressed the destroyed or blown up MP3 player. I put a DC to DC inverter on it. That's the black and red wire off the wiring harness. Is the 5 volts to the USB. You'll know when it's working because the blue lights that are in the buttons will light up because they're tied to the USB. So you know. But that's good. That's off my cargo bike, and that's been through a couple of rainstorms. It's potted, so I know it's not going to fail. And it's 12 volts in, 5 volts out. What else? I'm addressing pretty much everything on the bike before I put it back together. Another issue is the lip of the plastic tank doesn't line up with the door. As you can see, it's got a lip there that would be like that, but since it's so warped, it's hanging on the inside, which is sharp. I thought maybe at first I was just going to take a Dremel tool to it, but if I make it smaller, it's going to stick in even more. So what I'm going to try is I'm going to try and heat it up with a heat gun, and just see if I can bend it out a little bit. I'd rather have it in more than out, because it's doing a number on the battery. As you can see, ripping it up pretty good, not to mention my fingers. So let's try that. Well, bending it by hand really didn't work too well because it basically would just melt my hand. But what I did is I used this box here to widen it, and then I heated up the sides. So I'm just waiting for it to cool. It's gonna bounce back a bit, but it's gonna leave it much wider. And like I said, I'd rather have it curving in than curving out. That way I'm not cutting myself and I'm reaching in it. So we'll see how that works when it's cool. You can see how shiny it is there because it's been melted on both sides. Well, it worked. As you can see, the plastic now is behind the lip, both sides. This is smooth. Just like that since I got it. So, manufacturer's defect. Everything is pretty much taken care of. All the wiring is basic and straightforward. There's no wire all over the place, and everything's tied up and shrink tube and everything else. Nothing's going to short. The batteries aren't moving. The battery box is basically squeezed together. The only thing I'll have to keep an eye on from the side through the crack of the fairing is the BMS to make sure all the lights are lighting up when it's charging. If one of them is flashing, that means that there's a problem with one of the balance wires. So everything is working as it should. We'll post a couple of videos of a few rides. Basically what it does now is the resting voltage, well not resting voltage, but after you finish charging it, it's almost 100 volts. And then once you turn it on, it'll drop down to 95, and it basically stays at 95, so it's pretty good. That's because the LiPo 4 goes from 3.6 to 3.3 each cell, so we'll see. Later guys.